we don't talk enough about reinventing ourselves after motherhood, even though motherhood is never over. But let's say when kids are getting old enough or moving out of the house, how hard that is, but also how powerful that is. I actually get a lot of times, aren't you sad? And I'm like, no, I'm kind of excited too. I'm sad and I'm excited. It's like this, both things, but it's hard. It's hard because it's not just, I think like, oh, spend more time on something. Now it's a whole identity shift as well because you're not the same person that you were before you had kids. And um, it's not what you pick up there. You grew along the way and you've done other things. So I think it's a whole new thing to figure yourself out in that transition phase. And by the way, that's not just mothers. I do have friends that have taken care of the kids where the mom was the main income during that time, and they have to shift and start and do the same thing. So this is not just women, this is some men out, but majority is women. But welcome, I'm Heike Fallon and I'm a personal performance coach, and I help my clients to really manage and lead themselves from within for longevity and happy and healthy life.
Hi, I am Shannon Paslakwa, and I am a coach as well, and I help mainly women heal after miscarriages. And I think this is an interesting topic because you and I are at different stages. I'm at a stage where my kids are, you know, 10 and 12, and so they don't need me like they did when they were babies, but they do need me to be present. And it's interesting because we're talking about this in one of my psychology classes about the different stages that we go as we're aging and developing. And this Erickson, categorizes this age and this stage as generativity versus stagnation. And if you're contributing to society and contributing to, raising your kids or your community, you're going to feel like you're more fulfilled. Whereas if you're not contributing as much or you're more concerned about yourself, you're going to feel very stagnant. And it's an interesting conversation because, you know, there are times when you're a mom that you need to choose what the next step is.
Absolutely.
Does
And
that make sense?
yeah, but I love that you just mentioned it. There is a difference depending on what age you at,
Mhm.
biologically, physically, so to speak, but also mentally. And I think, just to understand too, yes, I got my last one graduating, so they will be all out of the house, but I've always, so there's some of my friends, for example, they stopped completely and then
Stopped what?
working completely. They stopped their profession and were full-time moms. I
Hmm.
I kept a minimum level going. So I wasn't
Yeah.
working full-time during that time. And then same as you, as soon as they got to the age where they didn't need me as much, I added more time. So I had the luxury to be able to do this. But it is a challenge at that time because you're juggling work and kids and being present and you want to do both. That's a different topic. But this topic is really about shifting to either more, right? Like you're doing right now, shifting to more or setting yourself up to what comes after. And
Mm.
also for me being in that, okay, so my kids will need me way less. And so I can do. And for me, a big thing was that even though I kept working throughout at a minimal level, I've always been growing. I've always been kind of working on learning more, integrating more, actually became a certified coach not until, what was that, 7 years ago, something like that, 6 years
Hmm.
ago. And and that was well into when the kids were at home because I knew I wanted to integrate that. I knew when once they all out of the house, I want to do more than what I have been doing And I knew that there's that whole part because that, I think the big part here is too, when we're talking about the transition, for a lot of people, it's the kids are out of the house and then what? What's your purpose?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
identified yourself being the mom taking care of
Yeah.
them, and then all of a sudden there comes this hole. And
Yeah.
I think and again, everybody's different. Everybody have to figure out their way. We're just sharing how it is for us. But for me, it was always I needed another purpose besides, taking
Yeah.
care of the kids. So I chose to always keep working a portion just because I needed that for me. Other people are
Yeah. That's
very different,
that it, yeah, I'm very similar to you. I was a teacher up until recently, and then I became a coach, and now I'm in school to become a therapist. And it's like I have some friends who really want to like they really want to be stay-at-home moms, and which is awesome. I don't get like I want to spend time with my kids. I want to, but I don't get as much fulfillment. I get fulfillment from it, but I need more.
yep.
So there is that balance of finding fulfillment in both and having like a part-time job or finding something that fulfills you while also being able to spend time with your family. And yeah, that's all I have.
Well, and just, I mean, obviously, I consider myself lucky to be able to have that choice. Not
Yeah.
everybody has the choice. So I'm like not judging that at all. So if somebody
Yeah, no.
has to work full time because of the finances or because they want to, because
Yeah.
that's what they feel they need. Because I do know people too, they go like, I could not stay home the whole time. It will drive me crazy. I want to work full time, which is fine too. Everybody's different, right? But my point for this conversation is really the transition seems to be for anybody who did not work full time or not at all during that time, but then what are they doing after? Right? What are they doing in that transition? And the transition can be hard because it's not again like a, oh, you got all this free time, just schedule yourself with like something else. It's really it's an identity shift. And you have
Yeah.
to first figure out again what your purpose is because you may have just you might fall into a hole where it feels like you have no purpose in the
Well,
moment.
your purpose has changed, or it may have, yeah, it may have changed during that time. It may have shifted. I've worked with women who, their kids have left and, they're full time, but they're full time, working, but they still are having a really difficult time and they're questioning what their purpose is. And it's a hard shift. And even at the age that my kids are at right now, they are less reliant on me. And it's making that shift at this point of, okay, what's important to me? And I just had this conversation with a couple of my friends as well. What's important to us at this point? Our kids are getting older. When they're gone in a couple of years, what's important to us? What are our values? And how do we figure out what those are and what do we do with them?
See, but I think that is really, really important to think about this already and have conversation already now
Yeah.
rather than when it happens and then you fall
And being
in
surprised.
yeah, and then you kind of all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is all sad and it's a hard kind of stop and then you kind of have to figure it out. So I usually recommend, start thinking about not what you're going to do necessarily, but like what you did, right? What is my purpose? What are my values? What do I care about? And I think a huge part is too what you said in the beginning is the contribution because we're as a when you home with your kids and let's say I was very involved in the schools as well and volunteering and so you're giving a lot to the community and being there for the kids and guiding them through their day their ups and downs and what have you gives you something that won't be there anymore. So how can you now contribute it otherwise is the question. Because we do know if we're contribute to society, if we do something for others, and it doesn't always has to be volunteer work, but anything like that does help our happiness and our well-being. And so the question is too is like to think of like, okay, what are my values and where could I be involved? Because not everybody necessarily wants to work again. Like I love what I do. I totally geek out on
Right.
it and I would not want to miss it. But I do have friends too. They go like, okay, I don't have to go back to work and I'm figuring out what else would make me happy, what else can I do to and oftentimes if we give back to community, get involved in different organizations, there's plenty. I bet in
Yeah, I've looked into volunteering because I want to, and I've looked at some specific places because I want to do more. Like I work from home and I'm not surrounded by people. And I want to go out into my community and I want to give back to my community and I want to meet other people.
yeah.
And that's a really good way of doing it. And I think that took me like thinking about, okay, well, what area is important to me? Like where do I find like fulfillment? And and so I looked into specific things, places where I could volunteer that would be in the area that I like, in the topic that I like. And so, I'm looking into doing that, but also just finding a good group of friends who are going through something similar and, figuring out ways that you could do it together.
Yeah. No, I love that. And uh, I think too what helped me tremendously is like which I wasn't good at in the beginning but learned through my coaching as well to really visualize your life in 10, 15 years. I was never
Yeah.
good at that before because I never really thought about it. I was just I was just doing and doing, but to actually sit there and think like, yeah, how do I see my life? What does that look like? What do I do like after they all out of the house? What how will my day look like? How am I going to fill my weeks, my month? What shifts are happening and what would make me happy and what would that life look like? And it took me a while to kind of get used to like I said, I always struggled with like, oh, think in your year and 5 years from now. And so I had to start with shorter time frames in the beginning, and then I got better at it. But I think it's important to kind of envision yourself and your life, how you would like to have it look in and feel how you want to feel in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. And like you said, like even further, because when our kids are out of the house and it's just you or you and your partner, like what do you want that day to look like for you? And again, like where do you get the energy? How are you getting your energy? Because as we get older, we lose our energy.
Yeah,
So it's like,
100%.
how do you add that energy? And it was interesting because I was talking to a doctor the other day, a nurse actually, and she was, I don't know, mid 60s probably, working in an ER and so much energy. And she said she is healthier than her own children because she goes nonstop. She goes nonstop in the ER and she's always working and she loves what she does. And I think there is some serious value to that. Like if you really sit down and think about that, like she loves what she does and it keeps her busy and it keeps her fulfilled. And when you find something that fulfills you so much, it's going to give you that energy. She's not slowing down.
Yeah, no, and I actually just finished the course, which is a longevity course, because I always say, don't start it when you retire. Actually, you should think about it ahead of time, how you're going to sustain. And I think being involved, like she's still working, but she may not work forever, right? But it's, I do it. My son is just walking in. I have to cut this out. Gehst du wieder? Oh, I wanted to text him. I had the feeling that might happen. Sorry. We're gonna have to cut and oh yeah, have to Caroline cut it out. That's okay.
I wouldn't have even noticed.
Because I'm by the front door.
Oh, but I wouldn't have even noticed.
Oh yeah, because it would have been noisy. He would have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's why I'm like, yeah, forget it. So we're gonna cut this out. That's okay. But
Okay. Okay.
but the point is that we need to be involved, right? Like that person you're talking about there, she's involved with people. She's like involved with different ages, and I think that's extremely important too,
Mm.
because I have clients and family members that are older, and they're involved and friends with all ages, and I think that really helps as well. And
That's really interesting because that is part of the developmental stage that Erik Erikson talks about in psychology, where when you're like our age or and contributing to the younger generation and
yeah,
you're giving them knowledge, it helps you feel again fulfilled. I can't think of another word.
yeah.
Um, and I'm writing a paper on this right now. So I think it's really interesting.
It is. It's
uh,
fascinating because it's
it's
true.
interesting that we're having this conversation and that you brought that up because that is one of the things that helps you feel like you're satisfied.
Yeah,
I don't
and
want to
it's
use the word fulfilled again.
but it is, I think, a huge transition, particularly when, let's say, as we started off, your kids are moving out or not
Yeah.
needing you as much anymore. You can give that same to others in the community. They don't have to be your family members. So, especially, and there's a lot of research on that too. Any seniors that get involved with other generations and are, contributing or even being friends, people always kind of laugh a little bit when I say, yeah, I have a 101-year-old friend.
I
you know
love that.
it's true, and I know, like, in that, but that comes when you're involved, right? When you're involved in your community and you participate in things where it's multi generations, and I think that's something that got lost from how our culture lives, right? It used to be way back when that families kind of lived together,
They
and
all stayed
and
together.
and
Yeah.
they stayed together, and you have multiple generations in there. Now it's not like that, right? And a lot of people that, once they get in their 70s, 80s, if they only are surrounded by that same age, it's not giving them the same mental
Yeah.
stimulus as you would be surrounded by younger generations or older, even for that sake.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
plenty of 90-year-olds that are sharp as hell, and they
Yeah.
they are amazing, and you can, so I think that whole part is very important to kind of think about. Even so, when the kids are moving out, I'm far away from like 80 or something, but how do I want my years to look like? And I do want to be involved in community as well. But I do have also that awareness of that different ages, different generations. So for me, it'd be looking for something too. Where can I get something that, involves more that spanning over different ages? Because I do believe there is a tremendous giving and taking on both sides that is tremendously helpful for our health and longevity.
Yeah. 100% agree.
And you're writing a paper about it. Hey.
I'm writing a paper.
But it's important, right? So for anybody who's trying to figure out what to do next, think
Yeah,
about,
if you're feeling a little stuck or stagnant,
yeah.
um, well, one, you can contact one of us or just start writing down and really thinking about what your values are and how you want to contribute back to your community or society or your family. And that should probably get, the juices going and hopefully it'll find
100%.
some
But as you
clarity.
said, that's what we do as coaches, right? Because oftentimes a different perspective. So a
Yeah.
more targeted questions can help you kind of unpeel and figure things out when somebody's really stuck. That's what a coach does. That's what you and me do. But at the end of the day is it's like start thinking about it now, not
Yeah.
and think about it ahead of time a little bit what's to come and understand it's not easy. It's okay and it's okay that it's a little harder, but you can make it a little easier if you start thinking about it now with the values, with the purpose, and how to be engaged, and knowing that engagement in the community can be tremendously helpful. And trying out different things helps you too to figure out what you want to do. Now,
Yeah.
one part I do want to add to that still,
Hmm.
courage, because I think it took a lot of
Yeah.
courage for you to, for example, start up and do an education again. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it does take some courage to
Money. It also takes money.
it takes money, it takes finances too. True, true. Definitely I spend some on that too. But it does take courage to learn again because the learning isn't the same as when you're 25. Things seem to be not sticking as well. So, but here's a cool part. Every time you learn, you're actually training your brain and you're keeping your brain growing. So learning something new or different can be tremendously
Hmm.
helpful as well. So it doesn't always have to be for, the work we do. So you and I know we take classes or continuing education or get new certifications because that is what we do is our passion and goes that way. But even if somebody goes like, I want to learn how to knit, you know,
Right.
and you don't want to
My
make
girlfriends
it
are and I are
you
saying
don't want to
we
make it
want to
your
learn how to. Yeah.
profession, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be your profession, but the point is learning something new will
Yeah.
help your brain grow and it will again also put you together with other people. But it's the point of the growth of the brain for the long term, and that can be a really fun thing to do too, to learning something new. So
Yeah. I love my classes because I get to talk to so many different types of people, like younger generation. Some people are my age, most of them are younger. Um, and it's fun. Like it's fun to be able, like it stimulates my brain.
yeah. So that is a big component, I think, when we think about what comes next is how can we
How to,
stimulate our brain more? Because
yeah.
it's also, again, for living longer and having a, really happier and healthier time than hanging in there and feeling
Yeah.
now guilty and purposeless to shift that. It's not easy, but it's doable and anybody can do it. And if you need help, you can always reach out to us. But hopefully this conversation was helpful. It's a continuous effort. And it's again, I'm in it and it's always with a, yay and a little bit of
Yeah. Yeah. It's not always
sadness.
sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's
It takes
like
some time. It takes some effort.
yeah, I mean, it's a mix of emotion. I'm excited, but I'm sad too that a certain chapter ends. So it kind of it's a whole spectrum, as I say.
Yeah.
But I'm
It absolutely
embracing it
is.
fully, and it is a fun part of the journey, I think. So,
Yeah.
with that said, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.